Jose Alvarado. Bum. Terrible. Yeah. And away we go. Wednesday edition of the show, all across America, SportsMap Radio. Worldwide, SportsMap Radio app. Got a busy 3 hours ahead tonight. Our sojourn through the sports world commencing. Well, so much for that win last night for the Phillies. They won 7-0, and now they're down 5-0. Still a lot of baseball to be played as they just wrap up the fifth. So headed to the sixth inning. Not enough baseball for the Phillies tonight. Christian Javier is just amazing. I mean, the guy is just, he is establishing himself as one of the game's truly elite pitchers. And when you look at the Astros and the embarrassment of riches they have when it comes to starting pitching, it's no wonder they're in this position. When you consider, Verlander, Framber Valdez, this kid, Javier, Lance McCullers didn't pitch very well. He only had 10 starts this year. But, McCullers is an outstanding pitcher. It's ridiculous. When you're able to throw those guys every day at opposing teams, it's hard to win. Hard for them to lose, hard for other teams to win. But Javier has been fantastic yet again tonight, and the Astros bats have awoken. Questionable decision by Rob Thompson to go to Jose Alvarado in the top of the fifth inning with the bases loaded. Yordan Alvarez coming up. Not necessarily the move I would have made, but it's easy to second guess, and it's easy to try and sit here and nitpick at what managers do. I could have done the same last night when it came to Dusty Baker. Why on earth did he leave McCullers in as long as he did? When it was basically batting practice against him. All right, we're going to get the program started. We got a busy show. Tell you who we got coming on. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to do. Jason Page, the Cash In, just getting started on SportsMap Radio. Oh, they're doing the stand up for cancer thing. No, they do it at the All-Star game, too. Yeah. No, I'm all right. I have to pace myself. For me, that's the challenge sometimes, is pacing myself. Yes. No, not sad. Just honestly, I'm exhausted. Hosting a talk show at the end of a day that begins usually for me around 7:30 a.m., it's not easy. Yes. Yeah. And again, I'm a one-man band right now. You know. No, I'm not in a rush to do it right now, though. Yeah, I had a couple of people I was talking to, but I'm not gonna rush. I can handle it right now. As is evident. I mean, I've had no issues booking guests. You know. I didn't even get into who we have on the show tonight. I just dug right into the World Series. Astros lead 5-0, top of the sixth, game 4. Chance to even the series up at 2 games apiece. Reminder, yours truly picked the Phillies in 6. So, there had to be another Astros win here somewhere. A lot to do, as I said. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number. As always, 800-224-2004. Tweet at the show, at the back page. Again, on Twitter, at the back page. We're going to be joined by Bill Bender later this hour. About 28 minutes from now, we'll get into the college football playoff with him. Who got screwed? Who maybe got the benefit of the doubt? I could already tell you who I think got screwed and who got the benefit of the doubt, but we'll get into that with Bill Bender coming up at 20 minutes until the top of the hour. So 27 minutes from now. If you want to set a timer and say, set timer for 27 minutes, there you go. You'd be all set. We'll also get into the live betting for the night, MLB, NBA style. That's coming up in about 12 minutes. Next hour, you'll want to definitely be listening. We'll be joined by White Sox hurler Lucas Giolito. He will join us coming up at 8:40 p.m. Pacific. Lucas Giolito of the Chicago White Sox. One of 3 guys from the same high school class that are pitching in the major leagues right now. Do you imagine facing that high school? Max Fried, who pitches for the Braves, and Jack Flaherty, who pitches for the Cardinals, and Lucas Giolito. They were all at Harvard Westlake. And they all basically started opening day a few years ago, and it was like some crazy thing that they all started on opening day. It was like the first time 3 pitchers, same high school. Pretty wild. So anyway, Lucas Giolito will join us. We'll talk about the World Series with him, the world of baseball. White Sox pretty much have a new manager, but it hasn't been made official yet. I don't know how much he's going to want to talk about that, but we'll get him on, ask him about it anyway. That's coming up about an hour and a half from now on the show. So it's always about the second story, right? It's not ever the first story. It's not ever the breaking news. You know, breaking news, headline. You always have to kind of, and I'm starting to get the feeling, I'm starting to learn this lesson as, you're always learning as a talk show host. I've been doing this for 20 years, and you're still always learning. If you're not, then you're basically stagnant and you're going backwards if you're not always learning something. And the one thing I'm starting to learn as a talk show host, or continue to learn as a talk show host, is it's not about the first story. It's always about the next story. Oh, there was, a break-in at Nancy Pelosi's house. And her husband got beat up, and some guy was in there with a hammer. Okay, that's the breaking news. Now, it's easy to come onto a radio show if you're in politics or news and go, "Oh my God, here's the story!" But if you do that, you've got to do a revision almost immediately because there's always a second story. Same thing happens in sports all the time. And the last few weeks have been a prime example in the sports world that it's not about the first story, it's about the second story. And in some cases, even beyond that, the third story. Prime example, Ime Udoka. Start of the NBA season or NBA training camp. Udoka gets suspended. Adrian Wojnarowski comes out with the news. It was a weeknight we were doing the show, and the story came out. Udoka is staring at a season-long suspension. Nobody knows why. Drip, drip, drip. Wait a couple of days. Now the second story comes out. Oh, he was having an inappropriate relationship with somebody inside the Celtics organization. Drip, drip, drip. A couple more days come out. Oh, it was, with regard to somebody who's traveling or setting up travel arrangements, whatever. But it wasn't the first story that you could really react to because all you're doing is speculating at that point. And that's all you hear is speculation at that point. It's the second story that starts to give you more information and you can start to formulate an opinion. Joshua Primo, last Friday night. I'm sitting in my car. Joshua Primo, released by the San Antonio Spurs. Huh, that's curious. Drafted 12th, 2021 NBA draft. Why would they release the guy? And I immediately started to figure it out. There's another shoe to drop. This doesn't make sense. The Spurs don't do things like this. They didn't even give a reason why they were releasing him. Nothing. Just crickets. Best for him, best for the organization. HR response, blah, blah, blah. A couple days later, Joshua Primo allegedly exposed himself to a female employee on the San Antonio Spurs. Now, tomorrow there's going to be some press conference with Tony Busby, the famed attorney involved heavily in the defense of the women who alleged Deshaun Watson, forced sexual acts or coerced them into sexual acts, whatever. That was the next story. So Joshua Primo gets released. A couple days later, the next story. Now it's Daniel Snyder, who's, the latest example of this. And it's why you have to take with a grain of salt. Again, anything you hear in the sports media, that initial reaction. I get that we all live in the 24/7, 365 sports media news cycle. And there's going to be this rush to jump in whenever there's a headline. Breaking news. Boom. Okay, let's react. But then you wind up saying something stupid because a couple of days later, the real facts behind it come out, and now you're starting to deal with a different fact set than you had previously, which is, in most cases, no fact set at all. And the Daniel Snyder story today was the perfect example of that. The story when I woke up this morning, that the Washington Commanders owner had hired Bank of America Securities to explore a sale of the football team, which, by the way, we've been talking about for a couple of weeks. They had the NFL owners meetings a couple of weeks back. I think we talked about it with Jason Cole at the time. The idea that the league was going to try to force him to sell the team because of all the bad publicity and all the different negative stories that have surrounded the Commanders in the last decade. And now the one where, he's basically screwed up the idea of getting another stadium built, blah, blah, blah. So the headline today, Daniel Snyder hires Bank of America Securities to explore a sale of the Commanders. And then what breaks a little while later today? You guessed it, the other shoe dropped. You get the story that the U.S. Attorney's Office is investigating the Commanders over alleged financial improprieties. U.S. Attorney's Office, Eastern District of Virginia, criminal investigation, allegations of financial improprieties, two sources confirming it to ESPN. Donovan Nata Jr. was the byline on the story. And the sources said that prosecutors are focused on several areas and that the inquiry was triggered by a letter to the House Committee on Oversight and Reform sent to the FTC and several attorneys general in April alleging deceptive business practices. And I'd say this has got to make every NFL owner nervous, because I will guarantee, without question, Daniel Snyder is not the only one engaging in deceptive business practices. I mean, think about this for a second. And I say this for all sports owners. Think about how much of the baseball experience, football, basketball, hockey, think about how much of it is a cash experience. Now, that's starting to change, but over the years, so much of when you go to a sports event, it's $10 to a vendor who's giving you a pretzel or a hot dog or a cotton candy or a beer or whatever it may be. Oh, it's the parking attendant handing them a $20 to park in the lot. You think of all these different cash operations, and there's a reason NFL owners, MLB owners, NBA owners, NHL owners, there's a reason they never want to open the books. Because they don't want it to be seen. Because they know they're doing underhanded, shady stuff. I mean, deceptive business practices in sports. I'm supposed to be surprised that these guys who are millionaires and billionaires 100 times over in some cases, I'm supposed to be shocked that there's some supposed deceptive business practices. Team spokesman Gene Medina did not immediately comment to ESPN for the story. Put out a statement from the attorneys representing the Commanders. And the statement read, "It's not surprising ESPN is publishing more falsehoods based solely on anonymous sources given today's announcement. We're confident that after these agencies have had a chance to review the documents, complete their work, they'll come to the same conclusion as the team's internal review, that these allegations are simply untrue." The NFL also isn't commenting either. But, there isn't any way that these teams aren't, pushing a comma here, adding a zero there, adding a line in the spreadsheet there. I mean, this is how they get to be as rich as they are. And there's no way, again, in a business where there is so much cash that is moving from hand to hand and place to place, there's no way that you can convince me that there isn't some shady undertakings going on around the sports ownership world. Sorry, you're never going to convince me otherwise. Call me a conspiracy theorist, call me what you want. I just don't buy it. And again, there's a reason that owners to this day will never open up their books when the players ask them to. When it comes down to a labor dispute, they'll never open the books. Don't you think that's a little odd? The same way certain politicians don't want to show their taxes. You don't think it's a little bit odd when a owner says, nope, we will go as far as we have to, but we will not open our books for you. We're not going to show you how we're making our money. I mean, come on. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can tweet at the show at The Back Page. Again, hit me up on Twitter at The Back Page. 5-0 Astros over the Phillies as they play in the bottom of the sixth. We'll give you the live betting update on that tonight in the NBA as well as we continue on the Cash In. I'm Jason Page, and this is SportsMap Radio. I love this. Yeah, good job, man. He hasn't given up a hit yet? How many pitches is he at? Oh, forget it. Yeah, it's not happening. Yeah, I like him too. Had him on once before this season. Yeah, I had never what has been an interesting first release of the college football playoff teams. You got 4 of them, obviously, and a couple of surprises for sure. When you look at the college football rankings and then the college football playoff rankings, there's obviously some differences in the way those are laid out. We'll talk about it with Bill Bender coming up here in a minute. I'm Jason Page. Glad to have you with us on the Cash In. It's SportsMap Radio. Let me know when we have a minute left. Exactly. Thanks. Why are you laughing at me? The match game, baby. Of course. We press forward on this Wednesday edition of the show. 20 minutes till the top of the hour. First version of the college football playoff rankings have come out. Figured it was a good night to get Bill Bender on the show. Does a good job sporting news on the college football. All right, Mr. Bender. I don't know if there were too many big surprises. Maybe TCU at 7 with Alabama at 6. Tennessee, obviously, in the top spot, which I think is well-deserved. There's obviously going to be a lot of attrition here between now and the end of the year. What did you make of the first set of rankings?
Not too many big issues. TCU, like you said, maybe have the case there. LSU being a little higher than I thought they would be as the first 2-loss team. You hear a little bit about the SEC bias factor, but I mean, right now, Tennessee and Georgia are two of the three best teams in the country. And I think Ohio State's right there. If you said Ohio State was one or Georgia was one, I probably wouldn't put up a fight. I would have Georgia there, even though their resume isn't as good as the other two. I just still think, they're the defending national champion. They haven't shown a lot of drop-off. They're beating teams by a lot of points. And Tennessee will have their chance to knock them off this weekend.
See, I will take you to task here. As much as I love you, I will take you to task here because to me, I get the whole style points thing, but it's got to be about your resume. I mean, if we're talking about putting the four best teams in, and I get it's week one, and this will all shake itself out. So this is just an interesting, study in how we view these things. But to me, I mean, when you look at the body of work for Tennessee and who they've beaten this year, to me, it's impossible not to have them at number one, at least in this first set of rankings.
Well, it's certainly, like I said, I don't object. I mean, they've beaten 5 ranked teams. As impressive as the Alabama win is, it's almost more impressive to me what they did to LSU and Kentucky. They just, destroyed LSU at Tiger Stadium. That was supposed to be a matchup last weekend of 2 first-round quarterbacks, and they put it on Kentucky pretty good. So, but here's something that happens, right? Let's say Georgia comes out and just...
Did we lose you?
Rated.
Nope. Sorry, Bill. We lost you for a second. What were you saying? If Georgia comes out and does what?
If Georgia comes out and steamrolls them, we're going to do what we always do and say, see, Tennessee was overrated. But you know what? To your point, I think Tennessee can lose this game Saturday and has a way back in. Whereas if Georgia loses because of their resume, which you're rightfully right about, it's going to be a little harder for them to climb back in.
Well, that was going to be my next question to you. If Tennessee loses and then beats Alabama, well, if Tennessee loses, or if Tennessee, let's play it both ways. If Tennessee wins on Saturday, if they lose to Alabama in the SEC championship game, they still got to be in, right? If that's their only loss.
Tennessee it loses to Alabama in the SEC championship, I think they'd have a very good shot of being in. But you've got to count on other things happening because to me, until I see it, they're not going to leave out a unbeaten Power 5 champion. So if you're Tennessee at that point, you need either the Ohio State-Michigan winner or TCU or Clemson to lose because I think the two locks that are going to happen, the SEC champion, whoever wins in Atlanta, will be in the playoff. And I think the Big Ten champion, so long as it's Ohio State or Michigan for sure, will be in the college football playoff. And even Illinois, if they run the table, they're going to have a case. If they knock off Michigan and Ohio State, despite that Indiana loss, I don't think they're leaving out the Big Ten champion. So you need one of Clemson or TCU to lose at that point.
Spending some time with Bill Bender, college football writer, Sporting News, giving us some time here on the Cash In SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. With what Clemson has left, Notre Dame, does Notre Dame pose much of a risk to them coming up this weekend?
Popular upset pick by some people. Last time they went up there, it didn't go well. That was a better Notre Dame team than they are this year. But you never know. I think that could be a fun game. I think Clemson's best chance to lose, honestly, though, is probably the ACC championship game if they catch North Carolina. North Carolina's got Drake May. He leads the country in total offense. He's been amazing. And that's a quarterback that could make them uncomfortable and play a game like when they played Wake Forest. So if it's not Notre Dame, I think it would come down the road against Mac Brown in North Carolina.
That's what I was going to ask you about. That's the team I was going to ask you about is, if they get them in the ACC title game, can North Carolina potentially be that team that sort of throws the college football playoff into chaos?
Well, I think they're ranked a little low at 17. I think they should be ranked a little bit higher. That Notre Dame loss was rough, obviously, but yeah, they're a team certainly that could make some noise. I don't know how you would stack up the two lost teams. I personally think as good as LSU's been, Utah's a better two lost team. And now, granted that Utah did lose to Florida, and LSU beat Florida, so I guess that's the metric you can use there. But if LSU and Utah played head-to-head, I think it's a toss-up.
It's as low as we've seen Alabama in an opening, the opening rankings of the college football playoff. Give me the scenario that gets Alabama back into the playoff. Is it beating Tennessee in the SEC title game? I mean, what is it?
Well, they just have to win out. If they win out, it doesn't matter they're in because it's Alabama. All they have to do is win the SEC championship, and they've done this road before. I mean, over the next 2 weeks, they're playing 2 ranked teams on the road. Something they need to clean up this week is 14 penalties. They average 14 penalties for 110 yards on the road. That's atrocious. If they have 14 penalties for 110 yards against LSU, there's a good chance they'll get beat on Saturday night. But yeah, it doesn't matter. If they win the rest of their games and then play Georgia or Tennessee and they win that game, they'll probably be the 1 seed as usual.
It's hard to believe. And I had to go and double check this when I heard it today because I didn't believe it. But the Pac-12 hasn't had a team in the college football playoff since 2016, and it was Washington. I can't believe it's been 6 years. Do number 8 Oregon, number 9 USC, is there a case to make, or is there a path for them that is reasonable that could kind of break that 6-year skid?
I think Oregon and USC. That's what they need. They need Oregon to win out. They need Oregon to beat Utah in a few weeks. They need USC to win out. They need USC to beat UCLA. That way they don't get a rematch in the Pac-12 championship game, and you get a glamorous matchup. Now, Oregon, not some people, they're going to have that loss against Georgia held against them. That's a long time ago. They're a different team now. And then USC with the glamour factor, Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams is right there with Hendon Hooker and C.J. Stroud in the Heisman race. I think USC is the team that they need to get through there. And if they have that game on that Friday night, those teams could squeeze in. I mean, they do have 3 top 10 teams, and the conference has been very good this year, so this is their best chance to break that drought.
TCU, who we mentioned before, being behind Alabama, despite the fact that a lot of people would say they actually have a better resume than Alabama. And I guess if you're looking at the Pac-12, they're going to probably need TCU to lose in order to get one of those teams in too, right?
Yeah, they need them to lose. I mean, TCU had as good a month as any team in the country could possibly have. They beat 4 ranked teams in a row. They had I can't believe, one of the justifications for having them where they are is, well, they trailed in the second half. Well, it's football. I mean, they won.
It's more impressive, Bill. It's more impressive to me that they're able to come from behind in the second half.
Right. And the way that they came back against Oklahoma State and been able to do this with Max Duggan, who's been phenomenal. So any team that can beat 4 ranked teams in a row, but I think the challenge for them is staying focused, not pressing. A big one coming up with Texas, where Texas obviously has their former coach on the other sideline. I think there's going to be a lot made about that game next weekend. Obviously, they need to take care of business this weekend against Texas Tech first.
Spending some time with Bill Bender on the show, college football writer, Sporting News, joins us on the program, getting some thoughts with him. Anybody else that you could see sort of rising in the pack? Again, we're still kind of early, when you consider how many weeks are left in the season. Anybody else that you could see potentially making a run from the back of the pack here?
We talked about North Carolina and Illinois. I mean, there's a shot for both of them. I guess we have to mention Ole Miss. I mean, if they win out, they would have the one loss to LSU. If they went out and win the SEC championship, they'd be in. I mean, I know a couple weeks ago I was talking to some people, and what a scenario would be if LSU or Tennessee and Ole Miss played in the SEC championship game, and you'd have Lane Kiffin against his former team, and I can't imagine what they'd be throwing on the field if the Rebels won that one.
Very true. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Michigan State situation before we say goodbye to each other. Obviously, an ugly situation, the game against Michigan, what happened in the tunnel post game, number of players suspended. How much further does this go? Does it become criminal? Does is the conference going to get involved on some level? I mean, where does this go at this point?
Well, I hope this is the end of it and that there's not charges filed, and that, as I wrote for us this week at Sporting News, that this is the end of this nonsense that they've been doing for the last 15 years with the whole little brother thing. This should be a classic Big Ten rivalry. It's two in-state teams. It's become very childish. There's a lot of events that led up to what happened Saturday night. It just wasn't based on that game. And I think if I were Kevin Warren, when the UCLA and USC come back in the conference, you know what I do? I say, if you do this again, we're taking this game off the schedule. That's the best way to punish teams for this kind of nonsense.
Makes a lot of sense. It's actually a really good idea. Just pull the game off the schedule, and I think if you make that threat, you know what? Don't have them going back at the same time into the locker room too. I mean, there's so many little things you could do, in this sort of situation to try and ward off this sort of event from taking place. And I think if you put the scare into them, like you're saying, as far as saying we'll pull the game off the schedule, people will behave real fast.
I agree. So, it's one of those things where hopefully that happens, because, again, this game should be known for the hard hitting. In the last 15 years, they've also played 6 ranked games. And when I was growing up, it was a fun game to watch, but it was over when it was over. You're right about the tunnel, by the way. I think there's something where they just need to have protocols in place where it is ensured that one team can enter and exit, and the other team can enter and exit, and they don't have that happen again. There's too many instances of that with Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State the last couple of years, where it's time for a change there.
Bill Bender, college football writer, Sporting News. Check him out there. He does a great job. Appreciate you coming on this Wednesday night. We'll talk again soon.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
The phone number, 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You could tweet at us as well, at The Back Page. Again, hit me up there on Twitter, at The Back Page. We'll wrap up the hour on SportsMap Radio next. All right, I recorded that on my end, so we're good for the final hour. I got it on my end. Yeah, he was all right. It was fine. The Phillies going to get no hit tonight after winning 7-0. Oy vey. So who pitches tomorrow? Wow, Noah Syndergaard. Yeah. Well, I can say the same about Verlander because 2 of the 3 outings he's had this postseason have been terrible. Those guys make me sigh. Those clowns. God. Time for a word from our friends at playfortickets.com. Have you checked it out yet? If not, what are you waiting for? New partner of our show here on the Cash In. Playfortickets.com. Free to play pick'em games. And how about this? Hey, this will get your attention. How about the opportunity to win 2 tickets to the big game in 2023 in Arizona and $50,000 in cash, airfare and hotel included? Do I have your attention now? Go to playfortickets.com, try out their free-to-play games, pick the big games on Sunday from around the football world, and if you're better than everybody else in the Super Pick 7, how about a trip for 2 to the big game plus $50,000 cash? Go to playfortickets.com. You'll see the big button there that says play now. Sign up. Check it out. Playfortickets.com. Free to play. Pick the football games in week 7 and in week 9, rather. Pick 7 games correctly. You can check out all the rules and details there. Playfortickets.com. Super Pick 7. Get yourself a trip to the big game and $50,000 in cash. Need I say any more? Go and check it out. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You could tweet at us at the back page. Again, hit me up on Twitter at the back page. Go and check it out. I still can't believe my eyes right now. I was just saying this to John Belmer during the timeout, that this Phillies team that looked like the ball was on a tee for them last night against Lance McCullers is on the verge of being no-hit the very next night by Christian Javier and the Astros bullpen. Bottom of the 8th inning in Philadelphia, 5-0 Astros, and Alex Boehm's up the plate. And what? I mean, they might not even have to face Bryce Harper again in this game, if I'm doing my math right. Could you imagine if the Astros throw a no-hitter the night after losing 7-0? Amazing. It's too bad Javier's not still in there, though. Another hour of the cash-in is right around the corner. Kyrie Irving and the Nets trying to put a good face on an ugly situation. We'll get into that. Lucas Giolito joins us next hour, too, on the cash-in. It's SportsMap Radio. Stay with us. Okay. Yeah. Oh. 5 outs away from a no-hitter. I hope if I keep saying it, I might jinx it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but they're not me. I got the power of the jinx. I am the jinx. 2 outs. Is that 2 outs? Oh, okay. It's just 1 out. All right. My TV feed is a little bit behind the FanDuel has the stuff in front of me. Bryson Stott. Dallas hung on to beat Utah 103-100. Toronto beat San Antonio tonight 143-100. Holy Moses. Wow. 140. That's taking them out behind the woodshed. Wow. Oh. Clippers beat the Rockets again. Still a no-no? Still intact. Going to the ninth. Oh, come on. You got to bunt. Bunt in the ninth. If you gotta. Gotta bunt if you gotta. You cannot get no hit. You cannot get no hit. Bunt. 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 Well, excuse me, bunt. 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 I'd be that manager. Everybody hates me. Absolutely. Yeah. Another hour starts right now. SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. If you are a Chicago White Sox fan, if you're just a baseball fan, stick around. 35 minutes from now, we'll be joined by Lucas Giolito, White Sox starting pitcher. Get some thoughts with him on Game 4 of the World Series at large. I want to talk to him about pitching to Yordan Alvarez. How do you pitch to somebody like this? He's faced him, I think I had the numbers. I think he's faced him 7 times, and Alvarez is only 1 for 7 against him with a walk and a couple of strikeouts. So I want to find out, what's the secret? How do you pitch to Yordan Alvarez? I also want to ask him, I'm showing my cards here a little bit, but I once, I'm going to name drop for a second. That's not my intention. But whenever I talk to people in baseball, particularly people that are still in the game during, sort of my generation, I always like to get their thoughts on the best. I once was at the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey for a college football game of all things. I think it was Syracuse and USC, or it might have been Syracuse and Notre Dame. I can't remember, but it was Syracuse playing somebody at MetLife Stadium. And I was working for ESPN at the time, and we were sitting in a luxury suite with, was it Andre Ware and Aaron Boone? It was Aaron Boone and some former Lions starting quarterback. Might have been Andre Ware. It's going to drive me nuts now. I can't remember who it was. But anyway, we were sitting in a luxury suite, and I asked Aaron Boone, you get chummy with these guys, start talking, a couple of cocktails in, and I said, who's the best hitter you've ever seen? And he didn't even skip a beat. Miguel Cabrera. Goes, not even close. Greatest hitter I've ever seen. Now, mind you, this is 10 years ago? Yeah, this was probably about 10 years ago. It was 2012. And Aaron Boone said to me, best hitter he's ever seen was Miguel Cabrera. I'm curious to see who Lucas Giolito says when I ask him that question. I'm going to say it can't be somebody on your own team. See, that's fair, right? It can't be somebody on your own team. Because then it just sounds like you're playing Homer. We're back with more of the cash-in. Stick around. Talk a little Kyrie Irving next. SportsMap Radio. I want you to want me. Yep. I want you to want me. We have that song in the system anywhere? It's a great start. It's got a nice little instrumental in it. It's a good upbeat tune. Whoa. Let me see. No, it's Cheap Trick. Did not see you crying. Ah. You cannot get no hit if you are the Phillies in this game. Lay down a bunt. That's what I'm saying. Lay down a bunt. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Hit me up on Twitter at The Back Page. 28 minutes from now, we'll talk with White Sox starting pitcher Lucas Giolito, get some thoughts with him on this World Series. New manager coming for the White Sox. What's he going to do in this offseason? The White Sox just were riddled with injuries. So that's obviously a big part of what held that team back this year. Even the manager had health issues in Tony La Russa. So it's a down year when even your manager's missing games. Of course, when you have a 78-year-old manager, you're going to have health issues. I don't know many 78-year-olds that don't have health issues. So they're getting ready. They're still in the top of the ninth. We'll see if the Phillies can get a hit or if they get no hit in the postseason. Hey, oddly enough, if I'm not mistaken, the last postseason no-hitter was also in Philadelphia, wasn't it? Roy Halladay? I'm pretty sure. That was on the road. I'm pretty sure that game was in Philly when he threw a postseason no-hitter. I think that was 2010. And I'm almost positive it was 2010 because I think I was in Indianapolis at the time at a college football game. I don't remember. No, I might have been in Pittsburgh for a college football game that I was doing play-by-play for. Thank you. Wow, my brains aren't mashed potatoes after all. Every once in a while, I pull something out that I'm like, wow, I actually remember this. That's pretty scary when. Thank you. Absolutely. Do you know Justin Verlander doesn't have a single World Series win? Not one. I mean, he only has one World Series, as far as a ring is concerned. But I'm surprised he doesn't have a win in the World Series yet. And that's one of those things that kind of sticks with you. I mean, he's 0-6, ERA of 6.07 in 8 appearances in the World Series in his career. Doesn't bode well for the Astros tomorrow in Philadelphia, especially if the Phillies get no hit tonight. They're going to be coming out for blood tomorrow. Good news is if you win tonight and you're the Astros, you're guaranteed a game back at Minute Maid. That would obviously be Game 6, which is the game they will lose to lose the World Series because I have picked the Phillies in 6. We'll go through the live betting coming up in about 10 minutes on the show. The Kyrie Irving story took an interesting turn tonight. I don't know. Look, some people will say this is, sort of trying to buy your way out of trouble if you're Kyrie and the Nets, but they decided today that Kyrie is going to donate $500,000. I'll make sure I get the exact name correctly, but basically towards organizations that are rooted in diversity and things like that. It's his way of basically saying, you know what, I screwed up. That's the gist of it. Let me see if I can pull it up here real quick. So Kyrie Irving and the Nets each donating $500,000 in the wake of Irving's social media post, the book, and the movie that featured anti-Semitic tropes. Irving and the Nets donating $500,000 each to the Anti-Defamation League. The two sides, the Nets and Irving and Anti-Defamation League, put out a joint statement announcing that on Wednesday night. Here is the quote: "I oppose all forms of hatred and oppression and stand with communities that are marginalized and impacted every day. Irving said in a statement, I am aware of the negative impact of my post towards the Jewish community, and I take responsibility. I do not believe everything said in the documentary was true or reflects my morals and principles. I am a human being learning from all walks of life, and I intend to do so with an open mind and a willingness to listen. So from my family and I, we meant no harm to any one group, race, or religion of people, and wish to only be a beacon of truth and light. I gotta be, my blood boils when I read this stuff. It actually gets my blood pressure up when I read this sort of thing. Because to watch him in that press conference on, I don't know what it was, Saturday night, when he's, going after Nick Friedel and taking the media to task, and the media is just looking for a viral moment and all that. And I mean, he stood up there and got on his high horse, and there was nothing even close to this kind of apology. You know what this statement tells me? The league basically said, here's the deal. You're going to apologize or you're going to be suspended. And unlike when he stood on whatever silly principle he thought he was standing on when it came to not getting the vaccination and missing so much time last year as a result of it, Kyrie Irving said, you know what? I don't want to be suspended. Kyrie Irving said, you know what? This is one hill I'm not going to die on. Irving initially posted about the movie. I'm not going to say the name of it because I'm not even going to give it the air to breathe. If you want to go find out what it is, you can go look it up yourself. I will not dignify it on this show. He posted about the movie and book late last week. Then on Saturday night, defended the post in a news conference, saying he wouldn't stand down on what he believes in while declining to say whether he had anti-Semitic beliefs. Well, boy, how that changed quickly, huh? Just a few days and maybe the NBA saying, you know what, we're going to sit you for a week. We're going to sit you for 10 games. We're going to sit you for 5 games, whatever it was going to be. The league still should have sat him. I think the very milquetoast response on this from the NBA is one of the worst looks. Look, between the Robert Sarver handling by Adam Silver and now this, all the progress the NBA may have made over the last several years in the wake of the Donald Sterling fiasco in Los Angeles with the Clippers, all that goodwill has been spoiled, has been soured, has been made largely null and void by the way the NBA handled Robert Sarver and now how it's handled Kyrie Irving. And I'll give all the credit in the world to, and I can't, man, I wish I could remember who said it. Somebody prominent in the NBA. I don't want to credit the wrong person, but somebody came out and said it. The silence from NBA players on this, and we talked about it with Justin Termini last night on the show, the silence from NBA players with what has transpired here and nobody standing up for the Jewish community, and Jewish people around the world that watch the NBA, it is mind-boggling. And again, Justin Termini said it last night, and I'll give him credit because he's right. There's none of them in their midst. It's not like you turn around and there's a lot of Jewish NBA players on the court. And they can't see it. They can't see it. They can't touch it. They don't have to feel it. None of it really impacts their day-to-day life in the NBA, inside that bubble they all live in as professional athletes. So they're just not touching it. Nobody's going after Kyrie Irving for this. If it wasn't for the media holding his feet to the fire, this thing would have gone away with nearly a whimper. But it's very interesting that Kyrie Irving, for all of his bravado and all of his, I'm not going to get vaccinated, when push came to shove on this, he said, you know what? Okay, I'll give up $500,000 to what's basically $500,000 fine. Because the NBA, you know what the NBA said. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to give $500,000 to the ADL. You're going to make this statement that this somewhat tepid apology, and then you're not going to do something this stupid ever again. There is no room for anti-Semitism, racism, false narratives, or misguided attempts to create animosity and hate. That's Sam Zussman, CEO of BSE Global, the parent company of the Nets and Barclays Center. Now more than ever, there's a pressing need to ensure education in these areas. We're putting our prior statements into practice because actions speak louder than words. ADL, represented by Jonathan Greenblatt, their CEO, said at a time when anti-Semitism has reached historic levels, we know the best way to fight the oldest hatred is to both confront it head on and also to change hearts and minds. With this partnership, ADL will work with the Nets and Kyrie to open dialogue and increase understanding. So that's a little bit from everybody that's involved in this story. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Hit me up on Twitter at the back page. Let's say hi to Thunderman, who's listening to the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. What's going on, Thunderman? I'm doing good. Hopefully you're staying safe. Yeah. I appreciate the call. I'll answer this on the other side, but you know the Thunder thing is tricky because a lot of people were killed and a lot of people had to suffer, and frankly, parts of New Orleans still haven't recovered and never will recover from what happened in Hurricane Katrina. And I'd like to think that if the NBA was looking at Oklahoma City as a sort of place where you could put a team temporarily, they had to be thinking about it as a market potentially. To potentially, put an NBA franchise. So I'd like to think that there really isn't a scenario where you could say Katrina is a good thing. But I'll finish this on the other side. Let's see if the Astros finish the no-hitter. We'll come back. I'll address what Thunderman said as we continue on the cash-in at SportsMap Radio. What the absolute Joe Davis, the call on, wow, just crazy, on Fox tonight as the Christian Javier-led Houston Astros defeat the Phillies 5-0. That World Series now tied at 2 games apiece. Noah Syndergaard for the Phillies in Game 5 against Justin Verlander tomorrow night. Justin Verlander has never won a World Series game in his career, which is hard to believe. He will try to end that tomorrow night, and boy, you want to talk about the start of your career. Noah Syndergaard will get it tomorrow night. Wow. He was supposed to start Game 3, and because of the rainout, got pushed back. So now he'll start tomorrow with a chance to put the Phillies 1 win away from a World Series, or it'll be Justin Verlander doing the same for the Houston Astros. 5-0, Astros win it. Again, series tied at 2 games apiece. We'll be joined by Lucas Giolito coming up. I can't wait to talk to him after what we just saw. He'll join us coming up in about 7 minutes on the program. Just to address something that just happened on the show, the call we had from Thunderman in Oklahoma City, he's in Oklahoma, but he's somebody we've had on the show as a caller before, and the call kind of took a left-hand turn with him getting into the Kyrie Irving story and then Oklahoma City and the Thunder and what transpired there. But to the degree of what he said, and I already kind of addressed what he said about Hurricane Katrina. As for what he said about the Kyrie Irving comments and how, he hadn't really heard what Kyrie Irving said. One, I would imagine there are some people in America that don't know what Kyrie Irving has said. Because not everybody, listen, as much as we like to think everybody watches, these all news channels like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, the actual number of people around the country that actually watch these channels relative to the size of the population is a lot smaller than you think it is. It's not nearly as large as you think it is. So there are a lot of people that are not trapped in the 24/7 news cycle, news bubble, who may not have known the story. Now, with that being said, with what Kyrie Irving has said, and this idea that, I can't really care about Kyrie Irving, who's a millionaire athlete, saying something about the Jewish community and just to paraphrase what Thunderman was saying, that, Jewish people all make tons of money and they're in high-powered positions. That is playing around in stereotypical areas that you don't want to play around in. And it's casting aspersions on an entire community, which is the reason why the Anti-Defamation League and why so many different groups have spoken out against what Kyrie Irving has said. Because there are these misconceptions and misperceptions that are put out about the Jewish community, not just in this country, but worldwide. That Jewish people just run the world. And it's asinine. It's not true. And it creates a hostility and a bias towards Jewish people that still to this day exists and hasn't stopped. And when you talk about the Holocaust, and you start getting into the 6 to 11 million Jewish people that perished as a result of the Holocaust, I think we need to do everything we can to stamp out that sort of stereotype and bias and that sort of anti-Semitism. So that's all I'll say about that. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Tweet at the show if you wish, at the back page. Again, on Twitter, at the back page. Lucas Giolito, White Sox starting pitcher. We get to talk to him on the night that the Houston Astros throw a no-hitter in the World Series against the Phillies. Lucky us. That's coming up next on The Cash In. I'm Jason Page. Thanks for being with us on SportsMap Radio. Hey, it's Jason Page.
Hold on. What just happened?
I just called you on FaceTime audio. The audio is cleaner.
There we go.
Oh, there you are. Oh, I can actually see you. Look at that.
Oh, let me turn this off. Oh, do you do a FaceTime audio?
Yeah, but I can see you anyway. I don't care. Whatever.
All right.
How do I know you're not making faces at me under that thing? What's going on?
I'm chilling. Oh, are we live on air right now?
Not yet. No, we're not on yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
What's the good word?
Yeah, I was playing some video games. I had the game on in the background and a little no-hitter. That's kind of crazy.
Of all the nights to get you on, I get you on a night where they throw a no-hitter. Like, seriously? Like, what are the friggin' odds? Javier's a beast, though. That dude's awesome.
Nasty.
That whole rotation is not. I mean, 4 of their 5 starters. I mean, McCullers didn't look good yesterday, but
he's usually really good. He was just his stuff was a little flat.
Was he tipping his pitches though? Almost felt like it.
I don't know. Maybe they might have had something, but it's hard to tell.
Hold on one second. We're coming back. Hold on. Rolling along on this Wednesday edition of the show. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. On a night where the Houston Astros have no-hit the Philadelphia Phillies in the World Series. Game 4, 5-0 the final. It'll be Verlander versus Syndergaard in Game 5 tomorrow night. Crazy night to get this guy on the show. Lucas Giolito, White Sox starting pitcher, joins us on the cash-in on SportsMap Radio. All right, Big G, you just watched it. I mean, who could have seen that coming after what we saw from the Phillies offense last night against Lance McCullers? But this is 2 no-hitters that Christian Javier has started this year, 2 combined no-hitters, one against the Yankees in New York. I was watching that game. And then the one tonight. I mean, you've seen enough of Christian Javier, one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, he's got an explosive heater. I've actually got the highlights of it on right now in the background. He spins his fastball really well. It carries through the zone. I was watching early on, even when he was missing, he was missing with his heater. Like he would miss middle in to some of these righties, and they were just popping it straight up in the air. So that shows me that the life was just spectacular tonight. And yeah, I mean, I was watching it. I saw he was throwing a no-hitter, and then I looked up in the 5th inning, and that pitch count was a little bit too high. I was like, damn, there's no way they're going to let him finish this thing.
No, and that's the same thing that happened when he pitched against the Yankees this year. The pitch count was too high. So the series is tied at 2 games apiece. You know, and it's funny, every game has had sort of its own identity in this series. You know, game 1, Astros jump out to the early lead. Phillies basically shock Houston and come back and rally for the win. Then the game 2 win for the Astros. You come back after the rain out in game 3, and the Phillies tee off on Lance McCullers. And then you get what you have tonight in game 4. There hasn't been a real flow or one necessary dominating theme to this series from game to game.
Yeah, it's been a really exciting World Series. Not going to lie. The Astros just kind of dominated their way to the World Series, and now they're going up against a team in Philly that's just super hot, playing very confidently. That first game comeback win was so exciting. I mean, every single game's had a little bit of something, and you have no idea what's coming next. That's kind of how this World Series feels.
Yeah, it truly is. Before I get back to the World Series, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. They'd fire me, I think. Then again, I'm my own boss, so I guess I'd fire me. White Sox, obviously, Tony La Russa's gone. Most people outside of baseball lifers wouldn't know who Pedro Grifol is. What do you know about him? Are you talking to players? What are they saying about him as far as the guy who's reportedly going to be your next manager?
Yeah, so I haven't had a chance to speak with Pedro yet. I'm sure that he's doing his rounds right now with, who knows, media and the coaching staff, front office. I'm sure that, all of us will get a chance to speak with him soon. But from what I've heard, talking with guys on my team, talking with guys around the league, it's a really, really good move for us. I think that he's the type of manager that promotes unity, promotes guys, kind of that family environment, guys playing for each other, which is what we need. We need that team unity. We need to, kind of come together and really like hold each other accountable when need be, so that we can bounce back after a really rough season.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you get from the Tony La Russa experience? We're talking about a Hall of Fame manager. He's pitched in all these different. He's managed in all these different generations. A baseball lifer. What did you get out of the Tony La Russa experience?
I got to pick the brain of one of the most knowledgeable and most experienced managers ever in the history of the game. So I'm always going to be grateful for the couple seasons I got to spend with Tony at the helm. Obviously, things didn't work out the way that we wanted, the way we intended. But that's sports, man. You never really know what's going to happen. Kind of like with what's going on in the World Series right now. But at this point, we all love Tony and have such a high amount of respect for him, and he's in our thoughts right now because with the health stuff going on, that's what's most important above all else.
Talking with Lucas Giolito, White Sox starting pitcher here on the Cash In SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. What's it like to go through a season like this where, and not necessarily for you, you started 30 games, but so many guys on this roster banged up. Try and give me a sense in the locker room for what it's like to go through a season where it just feels like you can never get healthy as a team and have your entire roster out there.
Yeah, it's a huge grind. When I think about like 21 versus 22, 21, we were just having fun. We were vibing together, gelling together as a team. We were just going out expecting to win every single game. And even games we lost, we just shrug it off, move on to the next day. And yeah, it was just like high confidence at all times. It was a lot of fun. The way this past season went, that's when baseball can start to feel like a job. And when baseball feels like a job, that's when that you got to make some adjustments and things got to change a little bit. Like you said, the injuries were one of the biggest hits for us. I know that every single team deals with injuries, but it felt like we were kind of cursed a lot of the time. Like as soon as we felt like we had some momentum going and we were starting to play better, another key guy would go down. And it's like, all right, now we got to pick up the pieces, and it puts a lot of pressure on younger guys, puts a lot of pressure on kind of everybody else. And I think that we felt that, and it was like we were all trying a little bit too hard instead of just kind of going with the flow.
I know you have a bit of a bias, but you got to watch Dylan Cease up close and in person this year. And I remember when he was, just coming up from the minor leagues thinking this guy's going to be, a potentially a Cy Young Award winner someday. Did anybody think it could potentially be this fast?
I did. I think a lot of us did. We saw guys that had been like around him, even when he was still in the minor leagues with us. We saw the talent level was just like out of this world, extraordinary. It was just a matter of getting experience, refining, cleaning a couple things up, and he's done that. He went from having a pretty solid year in 21 to now he's probably going to be second place in Cy Young, maybe. I hope he wins, but unfortunately, the guy pitching tomorrow for the Astros, he's probably going to take it.
Yeah, for sure. Talking with Lucas Giolito, White Sox starting pitcher, joins us here on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. All right, so Yordan Alvarez is 1 for 7 against you with a walk and a couple of strikeouts. So tell me the secret. How do you pitch to him?
Man, Yordan, he's a big boy. He gets in the box. For me, I've always just attacked him like kind of play to my strengths. So my strengths are elevated fastballs, changeups down and away. I have mixed in some breaking balls to him, but generally you're trying to throw strike to ball. You're trying to throw a breaking ball that looks enticing but is not a strike, because the one that stays up over the plate, he'll hit about 500 feet.
Yeah, he is something else. You pitched to Aaron Judge too, and there's a guy who's probably going to win the MVP. Going to be a free agent here in the next couple of days. Give me a sense for what it's like to pitch to Aaron Judge, and kind of the differences, I guess, between pitching him and a guy like Jordan.
Yeah, so the biggest difference is the righty versus lefty, and I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm one of the starting pitchers that did not have to face Aaron Judge this year. I did not line up with the Yankees, which was probably good for me considering I was already trying to scratch my way down from like a 6 ERA. But
have you pitched to Judge?
Yeah.
But I'm sure you've pitched to Judge in the past, though, right?
Oh yeah. No, I pitched against him in the minors. I pitched against him in the big leagues. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know if I've given up a home run to him. I think I've given up some singles, maybe a double. But for Judge, same thing. Really big guy. It's important, I think, to make guys uncomfortable. So like Jordan, up and in fastballs to my glove side. Judge, up and in fastballs to the arm side. And then from there, I feel like with Judge, I can use the breaking ball first strike a little bit more than I would with Jordan, but you don't want to get too crazy with that. And then change up spot in the zone, going down and in. I feel like that's a good pitch to him. But I think that guys like them, when they get hot, especially Judge, he was pretty much hot all year. You just want to try and make as many quality pitches as you can. And, if he gets you, he gets you. I mean, when guys are going like that, it's kind of hard.
Big changes in baseball next year, especially for pitchers. So I'll take them one at a time. Pitch clock, like it, yes or no?
To be determined. I've historically been a guy that when I look at the numbers, I've been on the slower side, on like my pace in between pitches. And then the last like few starts, I made a conscious effort to try and pick up the pace a little bit, and I actually liked it. Talking with guys like teammates and stuff, they're saying that's going to be harder for the hitters than the pitchers. Because they were using in AAA. So, a lot of guys would get called up. We'd ask them, how's the automated strike zone? How's the pitch clock? And most guys were fans of it, to be honest. They said it does help speed up the game a little bit. There's less of the just kind of standing around aspect. So, yeah. I can't give you an official answer yet, but I think I will like it. I think I will.
No shifts. I have to imagine there's times as a pitcher where you're like, man, if we were playing straight away, that guy would be out. And now it's going to be a lot closer to that. How do you feel about the lack of the shift?
So, yeah, as a pitcher, it's funny. You always remember when the shift screws you. You never remember. You never remember how many times a guy smokes a changeup 107 off the bat, and it's a one hopper to the short right fielder that turns into a ground out. I think that's another thing. Looking at the numbers, the shift has helped me, but it's like just past like the 50% mark. So it's like I think it's been helpful to me. But again, when I think about it, I think about all the times it screwed me over. So I just think in general, like for baseball, I'm kind of indifferent to it. Shifting has been around for like ever. So it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to shake things up. We'll see. I think that we'll see some higher batting averages for sure. More singles, more ground ball base hits, things like that.
It's like poker, man. I'm a poker player. Nobody remembers the great wins. You always remember the bad beats. You always remember the bad beats. I only got time for one more, unfortunately. But, you got a bunch of guys, you and a couple other guys from Harvard Westlake High. How helpful has it been to you to go through the big league experience, knowing that you got guys like Max Fried, who I hear you hang out with him during the offseason quite a bit, and Jack Flaherty? What's it like having those guys to kind of bounce things off of?
Well, it's great. We're all working out together now this offseason. So yeah, it's been awesome. It's stuff we talked about like since we were in high school. Like, it's gonna be so cool when we're all in the big leagues together. And we talked about it. and then made it reality. It's a really cool feeling, being able to go through it. Like we went through the minor leagues, and we're always able to communicate with each other, help each other out, whether it be baseball stuff, life stuff, because our lifestyle as baseball players is a lot different than the average person. So it's like, having that kind of like built-in support group of like really close friends as we're all going through it together, it's been amazing. And, one of the things we talked about is, wouldn't it be cool if we were all on the same team one day? All of our free agencies are coming up, so, we'll see what happens.
No collusion. Don't collude. Lucas Giolito, listen, this was fun. I wish I had more time because I had about 17 more things I wanted to talk about with you. Promise we'll have you on again, though, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Love it. Lucas Giolito. Next time you're in Palm Springs, you better come say hi, too.
All right.
Good stuff. Lucas Giolito joining us on the show. We're back to wrap up the hour next. That was a blast. You were awesome. Thanks to Lucas Giolito for stopping by the show. That was fun. I wish we had more time. I had about 15 more minutes of questions for him. But he said he'll come back on. So thanks to Lucas for stopping by the show. It was a good time. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. If you want to tweet at the show, go ahead and do it. At the Back Page. Again, on Twitter, at the Back Page. Lucas had a down year last year. I mean, there's no getting around it. he struggled, and he made 30 starts, so it wasn't necessarily a physical thing or a health thing, but just one of those years. He's still only 28 years old, too, which is something to kind of consider. Feel like he's been around a while, but he's got about a half a dozen years in the league. So cool stuff. When I was talking to him earlier before the show tonight, he said he was playing video games while he was watching the World Series. It's great stuff. All right, one more hour to go on this Wednesday edition of the program. We will get into the Week 9 early peek ahead at the NFL schedule and the lines. Bill Bender, if you missed our conversation with him on college football and the playoff, that's coming up next hour too. Stick around, more to do on the Cash In. SportsMap Radio. Okay, awesome. Oh, cool. I didn't know that. Cool. Yeah, I saw you retweet it. Cool. Oh, cool. That was awesome. Yeah, I got to make a podcast happen with that dude. The Big G podcast with Jason Page. He gets top billing. My ego ain't that big. Nah. The Big G podcast. Final hour of a Wednesday/Thursday edition of the show. Programming note, I'm not here on Friday. I know. Dry your eyes. Yeah, I'm off on Friday. I'll be in Phoenix for a bowling tournament. See if I make the cut this week. Thanks to Big G, Lucas Giolito, for stopping by the show. Good to get some thoughts with the White Sox starting pitcher. Part of that rotation. That's a good rotation, too. I mean, they got some good arms in that rotation. Of course, starting with Dylan Cease, who has been amazing. It was funny what he said towards the end of that interview. I don't know if he caught it, where he said, man, we're all going to be free agents the same year. Him and his buddies from that he pitched in high school with at Harvard Westlake. And he essentially said, we're all going to be free agents. Imagine if we could wind up all pitching for the same team. I'd love to be the team that gets them all. Can you imagine? Better have a lot of money saved up. You're going to try and get all those guys. But wow, what a wild night. I mean, a no-hitter in the World Series. I'm still shell-shocked from it. I know it's a combined no-hitter, so we don't talk about it with, the same sort of reverence, because the combined no-hitter is a product of baseball in 2022, right? The combined no-hitter is baseball in 2022. Well, we can't throw more than 96 pitches for our starter, even though it's going to be the last game he starts this year. Let him throw 120. It's the last time he's going to pitch. Oh, we got to protect his arm. Jim Cobb. I say this all the time. I wish I could call him right now because he would say it. Jim Cobb, the former big league hurler who should be in the Hall of Fame and isn't, used to say it all the time. It'll rust off before it wears off. It's true. We're back with the final hour, or the rest of the final hour of the Cash In. Stick around. More to do on SportsMap Radio. Am I talking to you? I videotape. I actually recorded because he was on a video. I wasn't recording the video. I didn't have the video on the video feed.
no hits today. I mean, this is a daily game and it's filled with daily emotions.
Greg, up front to your right, Dusty.
Yes.
Dusty, maybe just a little bit more on Javier, not just doing what he did, but the situation. You're down 2-1 in this series. A lot hinges on tonight. What kind of context does that add to his performance for you?
Well, you know, to me, like I had heard an interview by Joe Torre that Game 4 is a pivotal game in a 7-game series, and you know that's why we kind of wanted Javi pitching that. That 4th game. And, the guy was cool as if it was June or July. And, that's how he is. And I was glad that I heard his mom and dad were here from Dominican. They got to see him pitch. And, it's always great when you do something in front of your folks. And, this is a world stage here. From people from all over the world are watching this, and he certainly put himself on the map.
Here's what I can't get my head around. And I'm just thinking about Game 5 tomorrow. And again, hats off to the Astros for winning Game 4 after getting, dusted last night 7-0, and coming back and throwing a combined no-hitter. I still can't get my head around it. They threw a no-hitter tonight in Philadelphia. 5-0 combined with Christian Javier and 3 other starters. But here's what I can't get my head around. I'm trying to figure out how do you look at the career of Justin Verlander, who's gonna be in the Hall of Fame. You got to think, guy that's going to be in the Hall of Fame. But how do you match that up with the fact that, let's say he throws another dud last night and this thing goes back to Houston 3-2. Whether the Astros win the World Series or not, Justin Verlander will have had 3 duds in 4 postseason starts, and 2 of them in the World Series. I don't know how you match that up with an entire career, and where does it how does it change his legacy, and how does it change the way you look at him through the prism of baseball history when a guy can't win a single World Series game? I don't have the answer. I'm not everybody likes to think they have all the answers in this business, and some people will just take a side for the sake of taking a side. I'm not taking a side on it. He's one of the greatest pitchers of this generation. You know who he reminds me of? I'll say it. He's Roger Clemens without the steroids. I mean, he's that kind of ferocious competitor. So many guys would have packed it in. After, having to have the Tommy John surgery at this stage of his career. Why are you going to go through all that recovery? He missed over a year. Why go through it? You're already one of the greatest pitchers of all time. Certainly of this generation. You don't have anything to prove to anybody. But it just goes to show you the tenacity and the kind of competitor that Justin Verlander is. And you take all that and his career in Detroit, and now his career in Houston with the Astros, the 2017 World Series, the Cy Young Awards, the no-hitters, all of it. And then you try and say, but you couldn't win one game in the playoffs? You couldn't win once in the postseason? Like, I don't know how to put those two things together. Because it seems so antithetical to what his career has been. The fact that this guy can't win in the playoffs, or not in the playoffs, but can't win in the World Series. And I don't have like his entire career postseason resume in front of me. I could pull it up pretty quickly, but it's one of those things that it's one of those interesting conversations that only sports fans can have in bars, and sort of try to come to some sort of consensus. Again, guy's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's one of the greats of this generation, but he couldn't win a single postseason game? We couldn't win a single World Series game? Like, again, I can't. All right, I got his postseason numbers here in front of me here. Let's see. Postseason for Justin Verlander. He is 15-11, 3.69 ERA. And that's updated through his, most recent struggles here in the World Series and 2 out of the 3 starts in this postseason. But 15 and 11 in the postseason, 3.69 earned run average, a whip of 1.1. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers. They're just, he's 0-6 with a 6.07 ERA in 8 World Series starts. 43 hits, 43 innings, 41 hits, 29 earned runs, 44 strikeouts. What stood out to me in the last outing was he didn't have an out pitch. He didn't have the put-away pitch in that game. And if that's the case again tomorrow, it's going to be another long day. That's what surprised me is he's normally able to put guys away. When he had 2 strikes, it felt like on every hitter in game 1. He could not put people away. It'll be interesting to see. 2017 World Series against the Dodgers. He had 2 starts, a 3.75 ERA. He didn't pitch terrible by any stretch. Interesting. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You want to tweet at the show, go ahead and do it at the back page. Hit me up on Twitter at the back page. If you missed any of our conversations tonight on the show, either with Bill Bender, who will have a replay of that coming up later in the hour, but our conversation with Lucas Giolito, White Sox starting pitcher, make sure to check out the Cash In podcast. It's available every night right after the show is done. Our intrepid crew of minions back in Houston. Oh, I'm kidding. You're not a minion, John Belmer. It's all right. Wasn't insinuating you're a minion, that you're a little tiny yellow person running around the building or anything like that. And that wasn't what I was saying at all. Belmer's not even responding. Means he's probably not listening to the show. No, not at all. Well, Brian McDonald, definitely I'm calling a minion because he actually had the nerve, who one of the guys who produces and engineers this show is Brian McDonald. Brian McDonald actually popped into the on-air studio tonight, even though he's not working on the show, and actually cracked the mic open and said Astros in 6. So, yeah, he gets minion status tonight. No question. He gets minion status. But I love Brian and John and Austin and all those guys that work on the show. But they put together the podcast every night after the show. So we take the best of the program and put it on. So if you missed my conversation with Lucas Giolito, it'll be on the podcast after the show. We'll also have a video clip of it available as well at some point tonight or early tomorrow if I decide to do it tonight or if I just decide to go to bed. Not really sure. We'll update you on what's going on in the late NBA games. The Lakers tonight trying to get their second win of the season, taking on the Pelicans. It's a close one in LA with 9 minutes to go. We'll let you know what's going on there. And one of my favorite things we do every week on this show, the look ahead at the Week 9 early lines. Also look ahead at the Thursday night football game line as well. I'll give you some early thoughts, not any predictions, but some early thoughts on what we're seeing in some of the lines here for Week 9. And there are some big numbers out there. We'll get to that as we continue. On the Cash In, I'm Jason Page. This is SportsMap Radio. Minion, little yellow person. Can you run around and just go me, 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 me? Yeah, minion drop. Yeah. I've never seen any of the movies. I've just only seen like commercials of them and stuff. Yeah, they look pretty cool. I don't have kids, so I don't have a reason to see that stuff. One, two. Wow, there's 3 double-digit lines in the NFL this weekend. Yeah. Well, Eagles, Texans, Bills, Jets. I mean, I could see that getting ugly. And then the third one, Titans, Colts. I think the Titans will cover. Titans are getting 12.5 in KC. I would probably take the Titans. Yeah, absolutely. Take the air out of the ball. Was that place even half full? Yeah, that's sad. Where'd you get the free tickets? Oh, nice. Cool. Of all the live things I've gone to, the one I like going to the least is the NFL. I'm not a big fan of watching it in person. What? Oh, yeah? Oh, nice. I've been to Bellator, literally front row for Bellator, but never for UFC. I've never been to UFC. Nah. I was into it a little bit about 10 to 12 years ago, but now it just doesn't do anything for me. No. It's so barbaric. Coming up in 13 minutes, my conversation with Bill Bender, college football writer at the Sporting News. A World Series no-hitter tonight, but it just doesn't feel the same. Am I wrong, Belmer? I mean, you're even an Astros fan. You don't have the same sort of glee or like, oh my God, wow. I mean, it's wild, but it's just not like, yeah. Sure. But I get it. You got it. I mean, well, I don't get it, but I know that it's the way of the baseball world these days. That's what I'll say. I don't get it, but I understand what's going on in the bigger picture. Yeah. I agree. Anyway, Bill Bender will talk college football coming up in about 12 minutes on the show. All right, NBA, before I get to the Week 9 early lines, Lakers trying to hold off the Pelicans out at Crypto. It's so weird to say that. Crypto.com arena. Lakers lead the Pelicans 98-97. 6:37 to go in that game. Grizzlies about to put the wraps on a win in Portland. Impressive win for John Morant and company. 105-100, 45 seconds to go there. In that Laker game tonight, wow, Lonnie Walker the fourth having a night. 23 points, 4 of 7 from three-point range, 8 of 13 from the field. We haven't done any live betting picks tonight on the show. Haven't done any yet. Listen, I'll go real easy here. I mean, Lakers are up 98-97, minus 1.5. I'd take the Lakers minus 1.5 right now. Yeah, I would do that. Lakers up 98-97. They're minus 1.5 on the live spread, minus 148 on the money line. If you want the Pelicans, you can get them at plus 124. LeBron tonight, 14.7 rebounds, 7 assists. Anthony Davis, 14, 9, and 3. Russell Westbrook off the bench for 13. How about this line for Russell Westbrook? Let me tell you, if the Lakers can get this nightly from Russell Westbrook off the bench, I think they'd keep him. 22 minutes, 13 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists, 6 of 9 shooting. I tell you right now, as the Lakers, you can get that every night from him, you're signing up for it. I don't know if he's going to be grumpy or not coming off the bench, but I'd do it. Zion Williamson tonight in 30 minutes, 21 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists in, as I said, 30 minutes, 9 of 17 shooting from the field for Zion Williamson. No Brandon Ingram tonight? Is he not playing? Must be banged up. Yeah, he's not playing. So that's what's going on in that game. Lakers lead it 100-99 with 5:44 to go in the fourth quarter. We'll keep tabs on it. All right, some quick look aheads at week 9 in the NFL. The early look ahead. The Thursday night game, I don't even know why we're talking about. Philadelphia minus 14. Anybody who knows me knows I do not like big numbers. And what transpired on Sunday night is exactly why I don't like big numbers. I took the Bills minus 10.5. You get a garbage touchdown in the fourth quarter from you get a couple of garbage touchdowns, frankly, in the fourth quarter from the Packers in a game that otherwise was a blowout, wasn't even that close. And you wind up getting a cover if you took the Packers plus 10.5 because they lose by 10 or 9, whatever it winds up being. And you get screwed if you're the team taking the favor in that spot. That's why I don't take big lines. Eagles are minus 14 tomorrow night in Houston against the Texans. Do I think they're going to cover? Yeah. But have I been burned enough on big lines like this that I would say stay away from it? Yes. The total is 45.5. I think it'll be close to that number. Colts and the Patriots. Let's get to the Sunday portion of week 9. Colts are plus 5.5 on the road in New England against the Patriots. I love the Patriots in this spot. I love Bill Belichick against rookie quarterbacks. Seen it time and time again. He dials up the schemes that give these guys nothing but headaches. I don't think Ellinger is nearly ready for this sort of game. I'll go with the Patriots all day, minus 5.5. If you wanted me to take a pick now. The total is 39.5, which is quite low. Considering you can get a defensive touchdown in there, and then it throws that number all out of whack. I'd probably stay away from the total, but I love the Patriots minus 5.5. Bills on the road at MetLife Stadium to take on the Jets. This is another one of those double-digit lines. And again, if you put a gun to my head, do I think the Bills, cover the 12.5? Yeah, but would I bet it? No, because I don't have to. There's nothing saying I have to pick those games. So I'm not going to. Dolphins on the road in Chicago to take on a much more inspired Bears team. It's minus 5, which seems awful low for a Miami team that when Tua's on the field, they win. Justin Fields has Chase Claypool now, and the offense the last 2 weeks has looked a little bit better. If anything, I would lean towards the over in this game, which is 45.5. Packers and the Lions, that game in Detroit. Look, picking the Packers right now, you do it at your own peril. And we know what the Lions have been throughout this entire season. Detroit's getting 3.5 at home. 49.5 is the total. If anything, I would probably lean towards the over in this game. Despite how bad the Packers' offense has been, Detroit gives up a ton of points, but they score a ton of points. So 49.5, I'd probably lean towards the over. Minnesota and Washington in the nation's capital. The Vikings minus 3.5, just one loss on the season for them. Again, it tells you the odds makers, despite the fact that the Commanders are 4-4, on a neutral field. Would anybody really only have this as a 3.5-point spread? Even if you're giving them a couple points credit because of the fact that it's in Washington. I mean, a one-loss Vikings team should be favored by more than 3.5. It tells you the odds makers still aren't buying into the Vikings. I am buying into the Vikings. I would take them minus the 3.5. Panthers and the Bengals. Carolina plus 7.5 on the road in Cincinnati. The Bengals have been tough to figure out. They looked good for a couple of games, and then last week the offense stumbled again. I would tend to lean in the direction of Cincinnati. If anything, I would lean towards the over at 42.5. Chargers and the Falcons. Look, I've picked Atlanta to win the NFC South. There's even a promo running on SportsMap Radio of me saying it, so now I'm really married to it. The Falcons plus 3 at home against the Chargers. I'll ride the Falcons right now. They are one of the best offensive teams in the NFL this year. Very efficient. They're getting healthier. I would take Atlanta plus the 3 at home this week. 49.5 is the total. I'd probably lean towards the over there as it stands right now. Raiders and Jaguars in Jacksonville plus 1.5 to the Jags at home. The Raiders were pathetic last week on the road in New Orleans, and this week they're back down there in the Southeast taking on the Jaguars. Your guess is as good as mine at this point. Jacksonville has been very hot and cold, and the Raiders have just been flat out awful for much of this season. They've lost a lot of close games. Last week was not one of those. Huge divisional matchup between the Seahawks and the Cardinals. I'll finish with this one. 2 points is the spread. Cardinals -2 at home against Seattle. This is a coin flip game. The total is 49.5. I think it goes over, if anything. I would say proceed at your own peril. To look ahead to what to look forward to for Week 9 in the NFL. When we continue, we'll switch it over to college football. Bill Bender, the Sporting News, talk about the college football playoff, all the shenanigans between Michigan State and Michigan as well. Stick around. More of the cash-in still to come on SportsMap Radio. Wow, Pelicans took a 105-103 lead. Let me get my thing here. Let me get my thing here.
You ate them, I believed.
Let me get my thing here. We press forward on this Wednesday edition of the show. 20 minutes till the top of the hour. First version of the college football playoff rankings have come out. Figured it was a good night to get Bill Bender on the show. Does a good job sporting news on the college football. All right, Mr. Bender. I don't know if there were too many big surprises. Maybe TCU at 7 with Alabama at 6. Tennessee, obviously, in the top spot, which I think is well-deserved. There's obviously going to be a lot of attrition here between now and the end of the year. What did you make of the first set of rankings?
Not.
We press forward on this Wednesday edition of the show. 20 minutes till the top of the hour. First version of the college football playoff rankings have come out. Figured it was a good night to get Bill Bender on the show. Does a good job sporting news on the college football. All right, Mr. Bender. I don't know if there were too many big surprises. Maybe TCU at 7 with Alabama at 6. Tennessee, obviously, in the top spot, which I think is well-deserved. There's obviously going to be a lot of attrition here between now and the end of the year. What did you make of the first set of rankings?
Not too many big issues. TCU, like you said, maybe have the case there. LSU being a
We press forward on this Wednesday edition of the show. 20 minutes till the top of the hour. First version of the college football playoff rankings have come out. Figured it was a good night to get Bill Bender on the show. Does a good job sporting news on the college football. All right, Mr. Bender. I don't know if there were too many big surprises. Maybe TCU at 7 with Alabama at 6. Tennessee, obviously, in the top spot, which I think is well-deserved. There's obviously going to be a lot of attrition here between now and the end of the year. What did you make of the first set of rankings?
Not too many big issues. TCU, like you said, maybe have the case there. LSU being a little higher than I thought they would be as the first 2-loss team. You hear a little bit about the SEC bias factor, but I mean, right now, Tennessee and Georgia are 2 of the 3 best teams in the country. And I think Ohio State's right there. If you said Ohio State was 1 or Georgia was 1, I probably wouldn't put up a fight. I would have Georgia there, even though their resume isn't as good as the other 2. I just still think, they're the defending national champion. They haven't shown a lot of drop-off. They're beating teams by a lot of points. And Tennessee will have their chance to knock them off this weekend.
See, I will take you to task here. As much as I love you, I will take you to task here because to me, I get the whole style points thing, but it's got to be about your resume. I mean, if we're talking about putting the 4 best teams in, and I get it's week 1, and this will all shake itself out. So this is just an interesting, study in how we view these things. But to me, I mean, when you look at the body of work for Tennessee and who they've beaten this year, to me, it's impossible not to have them at number 1, at least in this first set of rankings.
Well, it's certainly, like I said, I don't object. I mean, they've beaten 5 ranked teams. As impressive as the Alabama win is, it's almost more impressive to me what they did to LSU and Kentucky. They just, destroyed LSU at Tiger Stadium. That was supposed to be a matchup last weekend of 2 first-round quarterbacks, and they put it on Kentucky pretty good. So, but here's something that happens, right? So let's say Georgia comes out and just...
Did we lose you?
Rated.
Nope. Sorry, Bill. We lost you there for a second. What were you saying if Georgia comes out and does what?
If Georgia comes out and steamrolls them, we're going to do what we always do and say, see, Tennessee was overrated. But you know what? To your point, I think Tennessee can lose this game Saturday and has a way back in. Whereas if Georgia loses because of their resume, which you're rightfully right about, it's going to be a little harder for them to climb back in.
Well, that was going to be my next question to you. If Tennessee loses and then beats Alabama, if Tennessee loses. Or if Tennessee, let's play it both ways. If Tennessee wins on Saturday, if they lose to Alabama in the SEC championship game, they still got to be in, right? If that's their only loss.
Tennessee loses to Alabama in the SEC championship, I think they'd have a very good shot of being in. But you've got to count on other things happening because to me, until I see it, they're not going to leave out a unbeaten Power 5 champion. So if you're Tennessee at that point, you need either the Ohio State-Michigan winner or TCU or Clemson to lose. Because I think the 2 locks that are going to happen, the SEC champion, whoever wins in Atlanta, will be in the playoff. And I think the Big Ten champion, so long as it's Ohio State or Michigan for sure, will be in the college football playoff. And even Illinois, if they run the table, they're going to have a case. If they knock off Michigan and Ohio State, despite that Indiana loss, I don't think they're leaving out the Big Ten champion. So you need one of Clemson or TCU to lose at that point.
Spending some time with Bill Bender, college football writer, Sporting News, giving us some time here on the Cash In SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. With what Clemson has left, Notre Dame, does Notre Dame pose much of a risk to them coming up this weekend?
Popular upset pick by some people. Last time they went up there, it didn't go well. That was a better Notre Dame team than they are this year. But you never know. I think that could be a fun game. I think Clemson's best chance to lose, honestly, though, is probably the ACC championship game if they catch North Carolina. North Carolina's got Drake May. He leads the country in total offense. He's been amazing. And that's a quarterback that could make them uncomfortable and play a game like when they played Wake Forest. So if it's not Notre Dame, I think it would come down the road against Mac Brown in North Carolina.
That's what I was going to ask you about. That's the team I was going to ask you about is, if they get them in the ACC title game, can North Carolina potentially be that team that sort of throws the college football playoff into chaos?
Well, I think they're ranked a little low at 17. I think they should be ranked a little bit higher. That Notre Dame loss was rough, obviously, but yeah, they're a team certainly that could make some noise. I don't know how you would stack up the two lost teams. I personally think as good as LSU's been, Utah's a better two lost team. And now, granted that Utah did lose to Florida and LSU beat Florida, so I guess that's the metric you can use there. But if LSU and Utah played head to head, I think it's a toss up.
It's as low as we've seen Alabama in an opening, the opening rankings of the college football playoff. Give me the scenario that gets Alabama back into the playoff. Is it beating Tennessee in the SEC title game? I mean, what is it?
Well, they just have to win out. If they win out, it doesn't matter they're in because it's Alabama. All they have to do is win the SEC championship, and they've done this road before. I mean, over the next 2 weeks, they're playing two ranked teams on the road. Something they need to clean up this week is 14 penalties. They average 14 penalties for 110 yards on the road. That's atrocious. If they have 14 penalties for 110 yards against LSU, there's a good chance they'll get beat on Saturday night. But yeah, it doesn't matter. If they win the rest of their games and then play Georgia or Tennessee and they win that game, they'll probably be the one seed as usual.
It's hard to believe. And I had to go and double check this when I heard it today because I didn't believe it. But the Pac-12 hasn't had a team in the college football playoff since 2016, and it was Washington. I can't believe it's been 6 years. Do number 8 Oregon, number 9 USC? Is there a case to make, or is there a path for them that is reasonable that could kind of break that 6-year skid?
I think Oregon and USC. That's what they need. They need Oregon to win out. They need Oregon to beat Utah in a few weeks. They need USC to win out. They need USC to beat UCLA. That way they don't get a rematch in the Pac-12 championship game, and you get a glamorous matchup. Now, Oregon, not some people, they're going to have that loss against Georgia held against them. That's a long time ago. They're a different team now. And then USC with the glamour factor, Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams is right there with Hendon Hooker and C.J. Stroud in the Heisman race. I think USC is the team that they need to get through there. And if they have that game on that Friday night, those teams could squeeze in. I mean, they do have 3 top 10 teams, and the conference has been very good this year, so this is their best chance to break that drought.
TCU, who we mentioned before, being behind Alabama, despite the fact that a lot of people would say they actually have a better resume than Alabama. And I guess if you're looking at the Pac-12, they're going to probably need TCU to lose in order to get one of those teams in too, right?
Yeah, they need them to lose. I mean, TCU had as good a month as any team in the country could possibly have. They beat 4 ranked teams in a row. They had some. I can't believe one of the justifications for having them where they are is they trailed in the second half. Well, it's football. I mean, they won.
It's more impressive, Bill. It's more impressive to me that they're able to come from behind in the second half.
Right. And the way that they came back against Oklahoma State and been able to do this with Max Duggan, who's been phenomenal. So any team that can beat 4 ranked teams in a row, but I think the challenge for them is staying focused, not pressing. A big one coming up with Texas, where Texas obviously has their former coach on the other sideline. I think there's going to be a lot made about that game next weekend. Obviously, they need to take care of business this weekend against Texas Tech first.
Spending some time with Bill Bender on the show, college football writer, Sporting News, joins us on the program, getting some thoughts with him. Anybody else that you could see sort of rising in the pack? Again, we're still kind of early, when you consider how many weeks are left in the season. Anybody else that you could see potentially making a run from the back of the pack here?
We talked about North Carolina and Illinois. I mean, there's a shot for both of them. I guess we have to mention Ole Miss. I mean, if they win out, they would have the one loss to LSU. If they went out and win the SEC championship, they'd be in. I mean, I know a couple weeks ago I was talking to some people, and what a scenario would be if LSU or Tennessee and Ole Miss played in the SEC championship game, and you'd have Lane Kiffin against his former team, and I can't imagine what they'd be throwing on the field if the Rebels won that one.
Very true. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Michigan State situation before we say goodbye to each other. Obviously, an ugly situation, the game against Michigan, what happened in the tunnel post game, number of players suspended. How much further does this go? Does it become criminal? Is the conference going to get involved on some level? I mean, where does this go at this point?
Well, I hope this is the end of it and that there's not charges filed, and that, as I wrote for us this week at Sporting News, that this is the end of this nonsense that they've been doing for the last 15 years with the whole little brother thing. This should be a classic Big Ten rivalry. It's two in-state teams. It's become very childish. There's a lot of events that led up to what happened Saturday night. It just wasn't based on that game. And I think if I were Kevin Warren, when the UCLA and USC come back in the conference, you know what I'd do? I'd say, if you do this again, we're taking this game off the schedule. That's the best way to punish teams for this kind of nonsense.
Makes a lot of sense. It's actually a really good idea. Just pull the game off the schedule. And I think if you make that threat, you know what? Don't have them going back at the same time into the locker room too. I mean, there's so many little things you could do, in this sort of situation to try and ward off this sort of event from taking place. And I think if you put the scare into them, like you're saying, as far as saying we'll pull the game off the schedule, people will behave real fast.
I agree. So it's one of those things where hopefully that happens, because again, this game should be known for the hard hitting. In the last 15 years, they've also played 6 ranked games. And when I was growing up, it was a fun game to watch, but it was over when it was over. You're right about the tunnel, by the way. I think there's something where they just need to have protocols in place where it is ensured that one team can enter and exit, and the other team can enter and exit, and they don't have that happen again. There's too many instances of that with Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State the last couple of years, where it's time for a change there.
Bill Bender, college football writer, Sporting News. Check him out there. He does a great job. Appreciate you coming on this Wednesday night. We'll talk again soon.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
The phone number, 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You could tweet at us as well, at The Back Page. Again, hit me up there on Twitter, at The Back Page. We'll wrap up the hour on SportsMap Radio next. the Lakers have somebody named Matt Ryan coming off their bench. He catches the ball in the corner, falling away, three-pointer good at the buzzer to send the game to overtime. And the Lakers now in that overtime, leading the Pelicans 120 to 115. Not pictured in the above comments. The Pelicans up 111-108 were fouled with 1.6 seconds left. Had to make one free throw to make it a 4-point game. They miss them both. You can't miss them both. Miss them both, and the game winds up going to overtime, and the Lakers right now have it in hand. 120 to 115. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's the Lakers. 120 to 115. Notably absent from the Lakers lineup late in the game, though, Russell Westbrook. So he had a nice game tonight, but he's not on the court when it matters. So, gives you a little peek into what's going on in La La Land right now with the Lakers. Westbrook's getting, considerable run off the bench, but in the closing minutes of, an early season game that the Lakers feel like they need to have, and he's not on the floor. It's as simple as that. They don't trust him in a big spot on the floor late in the game. Lakers lead at 120 to 115 with 113 to go. We said take the Lakers -1.5. And it looks like our live bet for tonight's going to pay off. We'll have to wait and see tomorrow because we're just about out of time. We're out of time! I feel like Jim Ross on a WWE broadcast. We're out of time! We got to go! Good job tonight, John Belmer, producing and engineering it. Thank you, sir. Thanks to Bill Bender, our college football writer at the Sporting News, for joining us. And thank you to Lucas Giolito, White Sox starting pitcher, for joining us on the show on a night where the Astros get a World Series no-hitter. We're back with you tomorrow, same time. See ya. Yeah. Yeah, right. Be happy if you get 5 and 2 runs out of Verlander. Nice job tonight. Thank you. All right, I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye. For those watching, that's going to wrap it up. Have yourselves a great night. I'll talk to you all on Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Till then, bye.